In psychology, frames refer to mental, cognitive, interpretive frameworks within which people think, speak, interact, and act in ways guided by language. In the context of the Red Pill movement, a frame refers to the interpretive framework within which a person lives and acts. One could also describe this realm as a person's reality or their own little world. In the relationship between a man and a woman, the frame plays a special role. Often, it even determines the success or longevity of the relationship. Consciously or unconsciously, women often try to get their partner to step outside his frame. This constitutes what's known as a shit test, an attempt to see whether the man is still centered within himself or not. Here is an example. A woman says to her partner, "You could bring me flowers once in a while." In reality, it's not about the flowers at all. Rather, she's complaining that he's emotionally unavailable to her. But if the man responds to this, he loses his frame and enters the frame the woman has set for him. To the woman, this then appears to be a sign of weakness. After all, if it really bothered her that he never gives her flowers, she either wouldn't be with him at all or wouldn't have been with him for very long. And so far, it hasn't really bothered her that he is emotionally unavailable. Here too, a change in a man's behavior would likely be perceived as a sign of weakness. Incidentally, there's also the risk, of course, that a woman who's surprised with flowers might suspect her husband has a guilty conscience. That alone would be reason enough not to do it. A frame isn't static. Here is a simple example. There is the successful CEO who closes every deal and wins every negotiation in his favor, but at home he's under his wife's thumb. At work he has no trouble maintaining his frame, but at home he lets his wife dominate him at every turn until she eventually files for divorce because she can no longer tolerate his weakness. To counteract this, he would have to analyze his frame and consider why he can't manage to be the successful businessman at home as well. Usually, it's certain beliefs that prevent this. For example, the belief that his wife will leave him if he doesn't do as she wishes. Weaknesses in one's frame are almost always caused by beliefs. In a relationship, this is also due to men putting women on a pedestal. It's essential for a man to maintain his frame in a relationship, because otherwise it triggers hypergame doubts in the woman and her attraction to him wanes. He must live in his own world, not hers. Among other things, this means he must absolutely stick to his mission, whatever that may be. Depending on the circumstances, the woman can and should support him in this. This also includes exercising a certain degree of caution when it comes to housework. While a man should generally be able to handle all important household tasks on his own, he should do so for the sake of independence, not because the woman demands it. A man who knits wool socks is simply unsexy to women. Not that knitting is one of the things a man needs to know how to do anyway. What's important is that a man never puts his interest below hers, and certainly shouldn't seek her approval. In this context, it's important never to get drawn into arguments with a woman. And a man should certainly not let himself be swept up in emotional outbursts. The most dangerous arguments here are those that seem to arise out of nowhere. They often revolve around trivialities or minor issues, and both parties feel misunderstood. But what's really at stake here? In reality, it's not about the topic of the argument at all, but about leadership in a relationship. Subconsciously, women expect a certain degree of leadership from men, which gives them emotional security. It's about the question of which of the two maintains the emotional framework. The argument is nothing more than a shit test. The worst mistake a man can make at this point is to get drawn into the argument, try to discuss it logically, and possibly even justify himself. By doing so, the man loses his leadership and from the woman's perspective becomes less attractive. For the man, the only course of action in such a situation is to remain calm, under no circumstances argue with a woman, and calmly and confidently take the lead. If there actually is a problem, it will now be resolved confidently and calmly. If there isn't one, all the better. Then the man simply returns to what he was doing before. In moments like these, it all comes down to the man's inner strength. Talking about perceived or real problems weakens the man and makes the woman doubt his leadership. It's important for the man to recognize his own weaknesses, such as the urge to argue with or lecture the woman, and to fight against them. He should also, under no circumstances, show any sign of insecurity. It's important not to get caught up in her emotional reactions. The key now is to remain composed, exude calm, and guide her emotionally. To do this, the man must be able to regulate his own emotions. A healthy dose of toxic masculinity can be quite helpful here. After all, the man is not responsible for a woman's emotions. Anyone who tends to get flustered in difficult situations should practice staying calm, for example through meditation. Another important point is that the man must resist the temptation to play the role of the compulsive problem solver or savior. Often, women aren't looking for a solution to a problem, but rather for emotional support. In most cases, it's enough for a man to express a certain degree of understanding without getting drawn into the woman's emotional frame of reference. The motto is, acknowledge her feelings but don't take them on as your own. Because only those who are in control of themselves can always maintain their own frame of reference.